Vancouver is two things, very big and very small. Now, downtown Vancouver Peninsula, which is what most people think of when they think of Vancouver, is actually only 3 kilometers squared, but the city is much, much bigger. And it can be broken down into loads of distinct communities. From the chill vibes you find in Kitsilano, to the old historic feel of Gastown, or the tranquil ocean views of West End. Not to mention East Van, that has tons of neighbourhoods, like those you'll find on Main Street and Commercial Drive. Vancouver has a lot to offer newcomers, but with so much choice, how do you decide where to live? Where is safest? And how do you make sure you're not getting ripped off? And most importantly, outside of Vancouver, how do you actually go about finding a long-term rental in Canada? My name's Stephen, and we're about to find out. Hello. Pupper. Hey everyone, and welcome back to episode 3, where I nearly rip out all of my hair trying to find somewhere to live. Now, full disclosure, the first part of this video will be a little bit more Vancouver specific, because that's where I've actually moved to. And while there will be some information that is relevant regardless of where you end up in Canada, if you are really certain that you are not going to be focusing on Vancouver whatsoever, I will leave a little link below so that you can skip to the next section. So you have moved to Canada, or maybe you're watching this video in anticipation for your move. Either way, you will need somewhere to stay when you actually get here. Now, like I said in my very first video, I ended up getting an Airbnb for the first 2 months of my visit to Canada, which allowed me some time to settle in and get a feel for the city. If you can afford it, I strongly recommend doing the same. However, it is time to say goodbye to the trusty Airbnb and spread my wings. So I need to decide where to live. Well, what are my options? Let's learn about Vancouver. So the easiest way to explain it to a newcomer is to split Vancouver into 4 quadrants. There is the downtown peninsula, the west side, East Van, and South Vancouver. If we zoom out further, you'll see some of the neighbouring cities in Greater Vancouver, like Richmond, Burnaby, and North Van. These are quite far from the city centre though, so let's zoom into where most newcomers want to stay, the peninsula. If you're like me and you want to live in the heart of Vancouver, obviously downtown is most central, but also consider Yaletown, West End, Cole Harbour, and even Gastown. Obviously there are more options, but these are some of the trendier neighbourhoods and are still quite close to all the action. Do keep in mind though, Vancouver is pretty much tied with Toronto as the most expensive place to live in Canada. The average cost of a 1-bedroom apartment downtown is more than $2,000 a month. But we will be talking all about pricing a little bit later in this video. So, West End. The West End stretches across the western half of the downtown peninsula, and it mainly consists of these concrete high-rises that you can see in the background. They're not the prettiest, but they are relatively affordable, and especially if you're a couple looking for a 1-bedroom. You have the infamous Stanley Park just a few hundred metres up that way, and you have the downtown core of Vancouver a few hundred metres that way. And being so close to nature while still having access to the downtown core of Vancouver definitely is one of the perks of choosing to live here. Next up is Yaletown. Now, Yaletown is full of more modern high-rises and has some of the best restaurants and cafes that Vancouver has to offer. Also has amazing public transport in the form of sky trains, buses, and even ferries. It is a little bit further away from nature, but does have a seawall very close, and with some amazing places to choose to eat. Maybe that's a compromise you're willing to make. Gastown is Vancouver's oldest neighbourhood. It's got charm, it's central, it has a real sense of identity. But because of its age, it's also got much older rental units available. And this can cause some issues. Now, it's still worth checking out, as rents do tend to get significantly cheaper the further east out of Gastown you go, but there is a reason for that. So after Gastown, we have the downtown east side. And this place is amazing. It has some wonderful people, some great buildings, but it's commonly known that this part of Vancouver is also not the safest. The downtown east side of Vancouver has a high population of unhoused people, often with substance abuse issues. Lots of people are drawn to Vancouver because of the milder climate, but struggle due to the cost of living. Now, I have not had any negative experiences myself personally, and overall Vancouver is considered an extremely safe city, but it is something to weigh up for yourself if you're considering the downtown east side. Now that we have some idea where we might live, how do we actually go about finding an apartment? Well, let's find out. Something to know about house hunting in Vancouver is that it might be a little bit different than you're used to. Loads of rental agents post vacant signs outside apartment buildings, so a sure way to find yourself a home is to walk around the area and just call the number on the sign. This also has the added bonus of allowing you to see what's actually in the area before you even move in. As with everything over the last couple of years though, COVID-19 has kind of changed the game. More and more rental units are being posted online on sites like Facebook Marketplace, Kijiji and Craigslist. You do have to be very careful when you are going through these kind of sites though, as, like I've said before, scams are common. It might be a scam if they ask you to wire transfer the deposit, or if they refuse to let you physically see the unit in person. Sometimes they claim that the landlord is out of town, or they request more than half a month's rent for a damaged deposit. They might also claim that you need to send them money for them to physically mail you the keys. Scams can literally happen to any of us, so just remember to stay vigilant when you are searching for your new home. So we are off to our first viewing of the day. Sun is shining and I am hopeful we will find somewhere great to live. Now for context, I am looking for a 1-bedroom apartment with a work office space so that I can work from home. So yeah, let's see what we got. So this one is in Kitsilano, a little outside downtown, but not too far. And this is what I see when I walk in the door. Straight into some storage, which is always a good start. Then we go through to the right into the living area, which has a little balcony on the side. Very nice. The apartment rents unfurnished, but it is great to see that even with furniture, there is still lots of space. Now, the current tenants are clearly using this as their work from home space, and it is nice that it's so separated from the living area, so you can leave your workday to one side after you clock out. The kitchen is pretty good. Full-size appliances, spacious and bright. The bathroom though is the same in every single property in Vancouver. If you find one different, please send me a photo, as I don't think I've ever seen one that doesn't look the exact same. Now for the bedroom, room for a queen size bed, amazing, and some decent storage. It's also worth mentioning that this place comes with a parking space and heating included, all for $1,750 per month. Right, an unspecified amount of time on the clock, some tips, let's go. So the first thing you'll probably notice if you ever rent an apartment in North America is furniture. Most apartments come unfurnished here, and while there is always people selling stuff online for the cheap, just know that this can significantly increase the costs of setting up your new place in the city. If you're moving into a high-rise building, just check how many elevators there are and how fast they move. There is nothing more frustrating than taking 10 to 15 minutes every time you want to go up or down the building waiting for an elevator. Is it pet friendly? Loads of people in Vancouver have pets. Just make sure that your apartment is pet friendly and check if the landlord does require any additional kind of deposit if you have a pet with you. Additional facilities. Now, some buildings will have some additional perks. They might have a pool or a gym or car park space or even a storage locker. Check in with the landlord whether these are included in your rent or will they cost you a little bit extra. It's also really wise to check about amenities that might be close to the building that you're thinking of renting. There is nothing worse than lugging your groceries 4 miles back to your apartment after your weekly shop. Also, laundromats are really useful to know if they're about. Now, a lot of apartments will have a laundry unit in the building at the very least, but sometimes this can be very crowded with loads of people sharing it, or could actually cost you a little bit more money than you were expecting. So most rental agents will require some sort of credit check from your credit bureau. Now, this isn't anything crazy, they just want to know if you have good credit or bad credit. Unfortunately, as I am so new to the country, I have no credit. Luckily, all of the landlords I've been chatting to have been absolutely fine with me just showing them a copy of my bank statement just to prove that I have some funds in my account that can cover the cost of rent for a few months if things go a little bit astray. Okay, so time is up. I'm not sure how long that actually took. If it was longer than 2 minutes, feel free to grill me in the comments down below. But let's go take a look at property 2. So this has a very different layout. You can go through the hallway or kitchen, both leading you to the living space. Lots of storage space again, full-size appliances in the kitchen, and this one has a dishwasher. Generous counter space too. Once again, this property will be unfurnished, but it is good to see what layout might work in this space. Now, as we go through the living space, this solarium turned office space is quite appealing as it's actually a separate space with a door. You can also enter the bedroom through the office space or from the hallway, so it's like the smallest maze in the world. a nice big closet, and back into the hall where we can see more storage by the front door. Into the bathroom then, which is, you've guessed it, the exact same as before, just different colours. This property is on the market for $2,000 per month, but that does come with a pretty generous storage locker, a parking space for the unit, and a part-time concierge. Not bad. So the letting agent for the last place wasn't comfortable with me showing the apartment on camera, as the tenant had like photos and personal belongings still in the space, which is understandable. But all you do need to know is that it was very expensive for what they were offering, which ultimately brings us to the last point of this video, and the one I assume most people have stuck around for. Let's talk about price. Like I said earlier, Vancouver is considered one of the most expensive places to live in all of Canada. Now, I'm aware that this is a controversial opinion to have, and I am fully expecting some flack in the comments down below, but hear me out. I have been searching predominantly in the downtown Vancouver peninsula, the main part, and accommodation is coming in at $1,900 to $2,300 a month. Coming from Dublin, Ireland, where a pretty disgusting bedsit would go for €1,200, it doesn't seem that terrible. Now, if you want to get a single room and a shared common space, they do seem to be going for $700 on the low end, up to $1,200 a month on the high end. Obviously, like any major city, the further from the city centre you go, the cheaper accommodation gets. If you want to move to Vancouver and maybe not spend so much on rent, you should check out Kitsilano, Fairview, Mount Pleasant, or even further out to East Van, which all have great public transport access to the city. So we have reached the end of day one of a house hunt in Canada, and I am happy to say that all hope is not lost. There seems to be genuinely some great options available out there. But I am really interested to know, if you have moved over yourself, where you chose how to live, what was good about it, what was bad about it, and if you think there is anything I forgot to mention in this video that someone moving over should know, do add it in the comments down below. Who knows, maybe we'll end up starting a turf war for best neighbourhood in Canada. I have heard some great things about Kensington Market in Toronto. Anyways, I am getting distracted, so until next time.